The quiet Saturday morning in the suburban neighborhood of Greenfield began with soft rays of sunlight streaming through the lush green trees, illuminating the neatly trimmed lawns. Greenfield was a place where everything seemed to be impeccably maintained. The houses stood side by side with spacious porches and meticulously cared for flower gardens. The uniform white walls and red-tiled roofs created a classic, serene beauty. This morning, many residents had risen early to enjoy the fresh air. Some stood outside mowing their lawns, while others sipped hot coffee in the tranquil atmosphere. Children laughed and played in the gardens, and the chirping of birds echoed through the trees, creating a uniquely peaceful ambience. This was the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew each other's names, where people greeted each other every morning and genuinely cared for one another. Amanda Jenkins, a middle-aged woman living in the neighborhood, took a particular interest in the order and beauty of Greenfield. Amanda saw herself as an indispensable part of the community. And though she wasn't an official member of the Homeowners Association, HOA, she often acted as if she had the authority to make decisions about everything in the neighborhood. Amanda relished being in control, and anything that disrupted the perfection she worked to maintain would quickly draw her dissatisfaction. The arrival of Ryan Thompson, the new neighbor, disrupted the serene atmosphere of Greenfield. Ryan, a man in his 30s, had just moved in from another city. He brought with him fresh ideas and his own sense of freedom, qualities Amanda found somewhat inappropriate for the orderly and tranquil neighborhood of Greenfield. Ryan was an easygoing, calm individual. He liked to do what he believed in and wasn't afraid to express his views. On his very first day in Greenfield, Ryan hung a flag supporting a political organization he believed in on the back of his pickup truck. To Ryan, the flag was simply a way of expressing his personal beliefs and pride. But to Amanda, it was nothing less than a provocation. As Amanda looked out her window and saw the flag fluttering on Ryan's truck, she felt uneasy. To her, the flag symbolized everything she wanted to keep out of Greenfield: outspoken opinions and bold expressions, which she believed only led to division and disorder. Amanda was determined to keep such disruptions away from the perfection and peace she worked so hard to preserve in the neighborhood. She decided she had to do something to remove the flag's presence. Amanda didn't take long to make a decision. She had pretended to be a member of the HOA multiple times before to achieve her personal goals. This time, she thought, would be no different. All she needed to do was call a towing company and request Ryan's truck be towed, claiming it violated neighborhood regulations. Sitting at her desk, her sharp eyes scanning her phone, Amanda searched for the number of a local towing company. She had carefully crafted her story, that she was a representative of the HOA and that Ryan's pickup truck was in violation of community rules for displaying political symbols in a public area. With a confident and cold tone, Amanda felt she was doing the right thing for the greater good of the community. Amanda picked up her phone, dialed the number, and waited. The ringing echoed in her ears until, after a few moments, someone answered on the other end. "Thank you for calling Premier Towing. How can we assist you today?" said a voice from the other end. "Hello, this is Amanda Jenkins, a representative of the Greenfield Homeowners Association. We have a truck parked in violation of community regulations, displaying an unauthorized symbol. I'd like to request an immediate tow," Amanda said with an authoritative tone, as though she genuinely had the authority she claimed. The towing company representative paused for a moment and then asked for further details. Amanda continued, confidently providing the location and describing the violation she had fabricated. After hearing her explanation, the representative did not question her claims and agreed to dispatch a tow truck. Amanda felt a sense of satisfaction, as though she had restored order to the neighborhood she cherished so dearly. After about an hour, Amanda looked out the window and saw the tow truck arrive. It stopped near Ryan's pickup truck, and the driver stepped out to inspect the vehicle. Amanda stood behind the curtain, watching everything unfold with a satisfied expression. The driver began attaching chains to the frame of Ryan's truck. The sharp screeching sound of metal scraping against the truck's frame made Amanda wince slightly at the thought of potential scratches. But she didn't waver. To her, a few scratches were a small price to pay for maintaining the order she desired. The tow truck driver seemed to struggle a bit, trying to secure the chains in the right places, and the process took longer than expected. Amanda stood there, arms crossed, her eyes never leaving the truck. She could hear the tow truck's engine revving, and slowly, Ryan's pickup was hauled away, disappearing from her view. A smug smile spread across Amanda's face. She muttered to herself, "It's done. The problem is solved. Maybe now he'll think twice before flaunting that flag." Amanda felt a sense of triumph, as if she had restored peace and order to Greenfield. Little did she know, her actions had set in motion a chain of events beyond her control, with unforeseen consequences waiting just around the corner. Ryan Thompson, after spending the morning shopping for essentials for his new home, felt cheerful as he drove back to the Greenfield neighborhood. He appreciated the quiet atmosphere of the place and hoped to integrate into the community quickly. However, as Ryan turned onto the street leading to his house, a strange feeling crept over him. Something wasn't right. His pickup truck, which he had parked in front of his house, was no longer there. Slowing down, Ryan stopped his car and stared at the empty spot where his truck used to be. A wave of anxiety rose within him. He got out of his car and walked to the spot where he distinctly remembered parking his truck. His eyes scanned the area, hoping it was just a mistake, that maybe someone had moved his truck to another location. But there was no sign of it. Ryan stood there, uneasy. He wondered if his truck had been stolen. Yet, in Greenfield, a neighborhood known for its security and tranquility, the idea of a stolen vehicle seemed far-fetched. Then he considered the possibility that it had been towed. But why would someone tow his truck? Ryan was certain he hadn't violated any parking rules. He always parked in the right place and never blocked anyone's way. Returning home, Ryan headed straight to his office. He quickly turned on his computer and accessed the security camera system he had installed on his first day in Greenfield to ensure the safety of his home and belongings. Ryan rewound the footage from that morning and soon spotted the scene of a tow truck pulling up in front of his house. His heart pounded as he watched the driver begin attaching chains to his truck. Ryan focused intently on the screen, narrowing his eyes as he noticed something in the background of the footage. Through the window of the house across the street, he could see the silhouette of a woman peering through the curtains. It was Amanda Jenkins. She was standing there, her eyes fixed on the entire towing process. A surge of suspicion ran through Ryan. He recalled that Amanda was the neighbor who seemed overly interested in everything happening around her and often acted as though she wanted to control others. He had noticed her staring at him a few times when he parked his truck or worked in his yard, but he had dismissed it as harmless curiosity. Now, after watching the footage, he couldn't help but suspect that Amanda was somehow involved in what had happened. Ryan leaned back in his chair, a mix of anger and confusion churning inside him. He couldn't understand why Amanda would do something like this. His truck had been parked completely legally. There were no rules in the neighborhood prohibiting the display of political symbols, and his truck hadn't blocked anyone or caused any inconvenience. Rewinding the footage again, Ryan examined Amanda's expressions more closely. He could clearly see her intense focus as his truck was being towed, and it solidified his suspicion. Amanda was the one behind this. Knowing his own principles, Ryan wasn't the type to let personal rights be violated, especially when it was rooted in injustice and deceit. He knew he needed to get to the bottom of this. After calming himself, Ryan decided he would confront Amanda directly. There might have been some kind of misunderstanding, and he wanted to give her the chance to explain before taking further action. Ryan stepped out of his house, walking straight to Amanda's door, and knocked firmly 3 times. After a few moments of waiting, the door opened. Amanda stood there, her face displaying a feigned look of surprise at the sight of Ryan. "Oh, Ryan, hello. Is there something I can help you with?" she asked, attempting to sound friendly, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Ryan caught her furtive glance, and it only strengthened his suspicions. "Hi, Amanda. I wanted to ask you something," Ryan said, keeping his tone calm but laced with seriousness. "My truck was towed this morning, and I was wondering if you saw anything happen." Amanda blinked, the surprise on her face seeming almost too deliberate. "Oh no, I have no idea," she replied, her voice attempting to sound innocent. "Maybe you parked in the wrong spot or violated some rule?" Ryan stared at her, narrowing his eyes with skepticism. "Amanda, my truck was parked right in front of my house, not blocking anyone, and I saw you watching from your window while it was being towed. Surely you must know something." Amanda was silent for a moment, then crossed her arms defensively, her expression shifting from surprise to guarded. "I might have seen something, but I don't know why they towed it. Maybe it was blocking something I didn't notice. You should probably call the towing company to find out." Ryan nodded slightly, sensing that Amanda wasn't telling the truth. But he knew pressing her for a confession now wouldn't yield any results. "All right, I'll look into it. Thanks anyway," he said, turning to leave. Amanda watched as Ryan walked away, the worry on her face becoming more apparent. She knew she had done something wrong, but her pride and arrogance wouldn't allow her to admit her mistake. Returning home, Ryan decided he needed more evidence before confronting the situation. He sat down at his desk, picked up his phone, and looked up the phone number for Premier Towing, the company that had towed his truck earlier that morning. He dialed the number and waited as the ringing tone echoed in his ear. After a few moments, a voice answered. "Thank you for calling Premier Towing. How can we assist you?" Ryan kept his tone calm but firm. "Hello, this is Ryan Thompson. My truck was towed this morning from in front of my house in Greenfield. I'd like to know why it was towed." The representative asked Ryan for a few details, and after a brief check, she responded, "Yes, Mr. Thompson, we do have a record of your vehicle being towed." The request was made by someone named Amanda Jenkins, claiming to be a representative of the Greenfield Homeowners Association. Ryan's heart pounded as he heard Amanda's name. He had been right. Amanda was behind this. A wave of anger rose within him, but he managed to stay composed. He pressed further. Did she provide a reason? She stated that the truck was displaying a symbol that violated the community's regulations. The representative explained, "If you believe there's been a misunderstanding, you can contact the person who made the request or the Homeowners Association directly." Ryan thanked the representative and hung up, struggling to keep his frustration in check. Amanda had crossed the line by impersonating the HOA and arranging for his truck to be towed simply because she didn't like the flag he displayed. This wasn't just petty behavior. It was an egregious abuse of authority. Ryan stood up, feeling a surge of determination. He walked briskly out of his house, heading toward Amanda's home once more. This time, he had no intention of leaving without clear answers. Ryan stood at Amanda's door, knocking firmly 3 times. Inside, Amanda was anxious. She had just faced Ryan not long ago, but the unease in her chest hadn't subsided. Hearing the knocks, she immediately knew who was outside. Taking a deep breath, she tried to compose herself before opening the door. Ryan stood there, his expression resolute and his gaze unyielding. Amanda looked at him, forcing a strained smile. "Ryan, you again? What's the matter now?" she asked, attempting to keep her tone light, though her unease was evident. Ryan didn't beat around the bush. "I called the towing company, and they told me you were the one who requested my truck be towed. You claimed to be a member of the HOA and said my flag violated community rules. Amanda, why did you do that?" His voice was calm but carried a sharp edge of confrontation. For a moment, Amanda lost the confidence she usually exuded. She knew the truth was out and there was no escaping it. She looked at Ryan, her eyes scanning his face as she scrambled for something to say. But her words came out as weak justifications. "It's an offensive symbol, Ryan," Amanda finally said, her tone defensive. "It's divisive, and I thought I was doing the right thing for the community." You shouldn't display something like that in a family-oriented neighborhood like Greenfield. Ryan's disappointment was plain on his face. Amanda, you did all of this just because you didn't like my flag? You impersonated the HOA, lied to the towing company, and caused damage to my property. You've crossed the line. This isn't about community standards. It's about you trying to control and impose your views on others. Amanda crossed her arms, trying to regain her composure. I'm just trying to maintain peace and order here. Ryan, you think you have the right to express your beliefs, but I also have the right to protect this neighborhood from division. Ryan shook his head, his expression firm. You're wrong. Amanda, you don't have the right to decide for others, especially not by using deceit and abusing authority. I'm not letting this go. I've reported your impersonation of the HOA to the police, and I'll be taking this matter to court. Amanda's face went pale at his words. You're blowing this out of proportion. Ryan, I was only trying to do what's best for everyone. She tried to justify. No, Amanda, this isn't just about what you think. It's about the consequences of your actions. You need to reflect on what you've done, Ryan said before turning and walking away, leaving Amanda standing in the doorway, a growing sense of worry and unease settling in her heart. Back at home, Ryan decided he couldn't let the matter end here. He couldn't allow Amanda to continue abusing her power and interfering in people's lives without facing any consequences. For him, this wasn't just about protecting his personal property. It was about standing up for his rights and those of his neighbors. Ryan sat down on the sofa, picked up his phone, and called the local police department. He briefly explained the situation. A neighbor had impersonated an HOA member and illegally had his truck towed. On the other end, the officer taking the call listened carefully and recorded all the details. After the call ended, they assured Ryan that an officer would be dispatched to investigate and collect statements. Within an hour, a police car pulled up in front of Ryan's house. A police officer, Sergeant Mitchell, stepped out of the vehicle. He was a tall man with a calm demeanor, which immediately made Ryan feel somewhat reassured. Sergeant Mitchell walked up to the door and knocked. Ryan opened it and welcomed him inside. Ryan led Sergeant Mitchell to the living room, where he showed him the security camera footage capturing the entire incident of his truck being towed. Ryan also provided the information he had received from the towing company, including the fact that Amanda had impersonated the HOA. Sergeant Mitchell carefully noted all these details, nodding in agreement as he reviewed the clear evidence. Mr. Thompson, I believe you have a very strong case here. Impersonating the HOA and making a false request to tow your vehicle is a serious offense, especially when it results in property damage. We will proceed with an investigation and take a statement from Ms. Jenkins. We'll keep you updated with any developments, Sergeant Mitchell said with a professional tone. Ryan nodded, thanking the officer, feeling as though a significant weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He wasn't just standing up for himself. He was standing up for fairness and justice for the entire neighborhood. Amanda had been feeling uneasy all morning. She couldn't focus on anything. The sudden knock on the door startled her, and she rushed to answer it. When she saw Sergeant Mitchell standing there in his police uniform, her heart sank. Ms. Jenkins, I'm Sergeant Mitchell from the local police department. We've received a report from Mr. Ryan Thompson regarding his vehicle being towed illegally. He alleges that you impersonated a member of the HOA and provided false information to request the tow. I'd like to ask you a few questions about this matter, Sergeant Mitchell said, his tone both serious and impartial. Amanda tried to stay calm, but she knew she couldn't avoid the situation forever. I just wanted to maintain peace in the neighborhood. That flag was really upsetting to some people, and I thought I was doing the right thing, she said, her voice trembling. Ms. Jenkins, impersonating the HOA is a violation of the law, and providing false information to have someone's vehicle towed is unacceptable. Do you admit to contacting the towing company and claiming to be an HOA representative? Sergeant Mitchell asked, his eyes fixed on Amanda. Amanda lowered her gaze, shame flooding through her. I did say I was with the HOA, but I was only trying to do what I thought was best for the community, she admitted, her voice faint. Sergeant Mitchell shook his head. It is not your place to decide what's best for the community by breaking the law. We will conduct further investigations, and you may face legal charges for impersonation and providing false information. Amanda felt her knees weaken at his words. She tried to maintain her composure, but tears were already welling up in her eyes. Sergeant Mitchell handed her a notice, instructing her to cooperate with the ongoing investigation. After Sergeant Mitchell left, Amanda leaned against the door, feeling as though her entire world was collapsing. She had never imagined things would escalate this far. She had thought she was doing the right thing, that she was protecting the neighborhood from division. But now, she was faced with the consequences of her actions, consequences she had never anticipated. Amanda returned to the living room, sank into the sofa, and began reflecting on everything she had done. She realized she had been too arrogant, too confident that she knew what was best for everyone. She had wielded power she didn't possess to control others. And now she had to confront the bitter truth that her actions had hurt not only Ryan but also herself. The fear of facing court and the potential legal repercussions suffocated Amanda. She wondered what her neighbors would think when they found out about all of this. Would they still look at her with the same respect? Or would they see her as a nuisance, someone who had brought trouble to the community? A sense of loneliness began to creep into Amanda's heart. The poor decisions she had made were now becoming a heavy burden, one that weighed her down more and more with each passing day. Ryan had made up his mind this time. He wouldn't let things slide. After meeting with the police and realizing that Amanda showed no intention of taking responsibility or expressing remorse, he knew he had to take action to ensure justice was served. For him, this wasn't just about his truck being towed. It was about principles, personal rights, and fairness within the community. After being informed by the police that Amanda had admitted to her actions, Ryan decided to file a civil lawsuit against her. He planned to seek compensation for all the expenses he had incurred, towing fees, impound lot charges, and the cost of repairing the scratches on his truck. These were damages he shouldn't have had to bear, and he saw no reason to let them go. Ryan began gathering all the necessary evidence. He printed out the security camera footage, saved the recording of his call with the towing company, and obtained a copy of Sergeant Mitchell's report. He also contacted an attorney to ensure his case would be as solid as possible. Every step he took was meticulous and resolute because he knew this wasn't just about him. It was a lesson for people like Amanda, who believed they could manipulate and control others without facing any consequences. One morning, Ryan met with his attorney, William Carter, a seasoned lawyer with extensive experience in civil cases. William listened attentively as Ryan recounted the entire story, from Amanda impersonating the HOA to his truck being towed. The lawyer nodded, his voice calm but firm. "With all the evidence you have, I'm confident we'll have a strong case. Mrs. Jenkins' actions not only violated your personal rights, but also constitute an abuse of power." Ryan felt a surge of motivation. He knew the lawsuit wouldn't be easy, especially going up against someone like Amanda, a person who always believed she was in the right. But he was determined. It was time to set the record straight and bring everything to light. The day of the trial had finally arrived. The entire Greenfield neighborhood was aware of the case, and many curious residents had come to witness the proceedings. The courtroom was small but filled with a palpable sense of tension. Ryan stood beside his attorney, while Amanda stood alone. No lawyer had agreed to represent her after reviewing the evidence. Amanda tried to appear confident, but it was clear she couldn't hide her anxiety. She knew that today, she would have to face the consequences of her actions, and the outcome could be severe. The judge entered the courtroom, prompting everyone to rise before beginning the session. William Carter, Ryan's attorney, was the first to speak. He methodically presented the case, laying out the evidence Ryan had gathered, the security camera footage, the report from Sergeant Mitchell, and the recording of the call with the towing company. Each piece of evidence was clear and irrefutable. Mr. Carter even played the video for the judge, which showed Amanda standing behind her window, watching intently as the truck was towed. Amanda stood silently, listening as Ryan's lawyer presented each piece of evidence, her heart sinking with every detail. When it was her turn to speak, Amanda tried to justify her actions. She claimed she only wanted to protect the peace of the neighborhood, insisting she had no malicious intent and thought she was doing the right thing. Her defense, however, was far from convincing. The judge listened but showed no sign of sympathy. After hearing arguments from both sides, the judge finally delivered the verdict. Mrs. Jenkins, your actions not only violated Mr. Thompson's personal rights but also represent a serious abuse of power. You had no authority to impersonate a member of the homeowners association or to request someone's vehicle be towed without legitimate grounds. I hereby order you to compensate Mr. Thompson for all related expenses, including towing fees, impound charges, and repair costs for the damage caused to his vehicle. Amanda felt her legs nearly give way as she heard the judgment. She had lost, not only legally but also in the eyes of her neighbors. She could feel the judgmental stares of those in the courtroom, some filled with pity, others with reproach. Amanda knew that her life in Greenfield would never be the same again. News of the trial quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. Everyone knew about Amanda's actions, and she soon became the subject of everyone's conversations. Former friends and neighbors who once greeted her warmly each morning now began to keep their distance. Amanda felt the sting of isolation and coldness every time she stepped outside. The next morning, Amanda tried to go for a walk as usual, but instead of friendly greetings, she was met with averted eyes. A few people turned away when they saw her approaching, while others pretended to be busy to avoid talking. Amanda felt as though she was walking through a void, a space where the peace and familiarity she once knew had vanished, replaced by coldness and alienation. She tried reaching out to a few close friends in the neighborhood, those she had often shared morning coffee with, but the responses she received were nothing but polite excuses. I'm really busy, Amanda. Maybe we can catch up another time, they said. Yet Amanda knew these were just ways to avoid her without causing more hurt. The loneliness grew larger with each passing day, as though the entire world was turning its back on her. Amanda had once believed she was doing the right thing, protecting the neighborhood from what she perceived as negativity. But now, she began to question whether she had been too arrogant and overbearing. What she received in return was isolation and icy stares, as if she had become a stranger in the very place she had once called home. While Amanda faced isolation, Ryan received overwhelming support from his neighbors. Everyone in the neighborhood knew about how Ryan had stood up for his rights and refused to let Amanda's abuse of power go unchecked. They admired his resolve and wanted to show their support. One weekend afternoon, families in the neighborhood organized a small gathering on Ryan's front lawn to thank him and express their solidarity. Neighbors brought homemade dishes, children played around, and the atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy. Some even brought small signs with messages like, "We support Ryan," to show their unity. Ryan felt deeply touched by the care and support from his neighbors. He realized that this wasn't just about his truck being towed. It was about the spirit of community and standing up against abuse and injustice. Their encouragement and support reassured him that confronting Amanda had been the right thing to do. Ryan didn't want this incident to leave a blemish on the neighborhood. He understood that not everyone agreed with his political views, but he also knew that everyone had the right to express their personal beliefs as long as they didn't harm others. He resolved not to let this incident change him. He remained firm in his values and beliefs. Ryan decided to keep the flag on his truck as a statement of personal freedom. He also recognized that this was not just his victory but a win for the entire community. He hoped that standing up for his rights would serve as a lesson to everyone about the importance of respecting individual rights and fairness. As the gathering came to an end, Ryan stood on his front lawn, watching his neighbors wave goodbye. He felt a stronger sense of connection to the Greenfield neighborhood than ever before. a place where justice and unity prevailed. In the days following the trial, Amanda was consumed by a suffocating sense of loneliness. She had lost everything she once took for granted: respect, friendships, and the joy of living in a neighborhood she had once called home. The peaceful mornings she used to love and her walks around the community had now become filled with an unsettling silence. Every morning, Amanda woke up with an overwhelming emptiness. She sat by the window, looking out at the garden where she had once tended each flower bed with care. The vibrant red roses no longer brought her the pride they once did. She knew that no matter how beautiful her garden was, the cold and distant stares of her neighbors would not change. Amanda tried to carry on with her life as usual. She went out for groceries, but every time she stepped into the store, she felt the weight of familiar eyes on her. The quick glances, the averted gazes, and the whispers behind her back all felt like sharp daggers, reminding her that she no longer belonged here. She attempted to join neighborhood activities, but no one wanted her there anymore. Gatherings where she had once been a central figure now took place without her. Friends who had once been close no longer invited her to their events. Amanda felt like an outsider in the community, someone no one wanted to accept anymore. The guilt and loneliness grew heavier each day. Amanda realized that her actions had not only hurt Ryan, but had also destroyed the relationships she had built over the years. She began to wonder if there was anything she could do to fix things. However, her arrogance made admitting her mistakes and apologizing an almost insurmountable challenge. One evening, after returning from yet another disheartening walk, Amanda sat down on her sofa, her eyes fixed on the empty wall in front of her. In the silence of her home, with no one to talk to and no one to listen, Amanda began to feel an overwhelming emptiness. She realized that everything she had done stemmed from her arrogance and her desire to control everything around her. Amanda had once believed she knew what was best for the neighborhood, but now she understood how wrong she had been. She hadn't listened, hadn't recognized that everyone had the right to live their lives as they saw fit, as long as they weren't harming anyone else. She had allowed fear and prejudice to guide her actions, and now she was paying the price. Sitting there, Amanda reminisced about the days before Ryan had moved in. She thought of the times when the Greenfield neighborhood was filled with laughter and joy, when she and her neighbors shared cheerful conversations, when they gathered at her house for tea and shared stories about their lives. She remembered the outdoor barbecues, the meals everyone prepared together, and the sense of camaraderie that once defined their community. Now, all of that was gone, lost to her pride and poor decisions. Amanda understood that she needed to change. She had to admit that she was wrong and find a way to make amends. But the thought of admitting her mistakes to Ryan and the neighbors was daunting. She wondered if she had the courage to do it, and if they would even be willing to forgive her. After many sleepless nights, Amanda finally decided she had to do something. She couldn't continue living with the guilt and loneliness that consumed her. No matter how difficult it might be, Amanda was determined to try and make amends. She wanted, at least once more, to experience the peace and harmony of the Greenfield neighborhood. Amanda decided to write an apology letter to Ryan. She knew she couldn't undo what had happened, but she hoped that, with sincerity, she could help Ryan understand how regretful she was for her actions. In the letter, Amanda admitted she had been wrong to impersonate the HOA and have Ryan's truck towed. She wrote that she had let fear and arrogance cloud her judgment and that she deeply regretted the trouble and harm she had caused him. Amanda also acknowledged that she didn't expect Ryan to forgive her, but she hoped he could see the sincerity in her apology. Her hands trembled as she folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. She knew this was only the first step, but it was the most important one. With a mix of nervousness and anxiety, she walked to Ryan's house. Standing before his door, she took a deep breath and gently placed the letter in his mailbox. Then she turned away, feeling a small sense of relief, like a part of the heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. A few days later, Ryan received the letter from Amanda. He hadn't expected it, and as he read her words, he sensed her sincerity and regret. He understood that admitting one's mistakes and apologizing wasn't easy, especially for someone like Amanda, a person who always sought to control everything. Ryan decided not to hold onto resentment. He knew what Amanda had done was wrong, but he also recognized that she was trying to make amends. While he wasn't sure if he could completely forgive her, he was willing to give her a chance to start over. Ryan decided to visit Amanda, to talk, and to find a way to resolve things. Ryan arrived at Amanda's house and knocked on the door. When she opened it, he could see the surprise in her eyes. Amanda stood there, wide-eyed, unable to believe what she was seeing. "Ryan, you came here?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ryan gave her a small smile. "Amanda, I read your letter. I can see that you're genuinely remorseful for what you've done, and I think we should talk. I'm not sure if I can forgive everything immediately, but I want to give you a chance to start over." Amanda felt tears welling up in her eyes. She hadn't expected Ryan to be willing to hear her out after everything that had happened. She invited him in, and the two sat down to talk. Amanda opened up about how she had been feeling, about the loneliness and guilt that had plagued her over the past few weeks. Ryan listened, and he could see that Amanda had truly changed. She was no longer the arrogant, overconfident woman she had been, but someone genuinely trying to make things right. After their conversation, Amanda felt as though a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She knew the road to regaining her neighbor's trust would be long and difficult, but she was ready to face it. Ryan, too, felt as though a new chapter had begun. He no longer wanted to harbor resentment and decided to work with Amanda to rebuild harmony in the neighborhood. Amanda began participating in community activities, this time with a more humble and respectful attitude. She helped the families around her, attended neighborhood gatherings, and used these opportunities to express her remorse and her desire to contribute positively to the community. Gradually, her neighbors began to notice the changes in her. They no longer looked at her with suspicion but slowly started to open their hearts and accept her again. One afternoon, Amanda received an invitation from a neighbor to join an outdoor barbecue. Her heart swelled with joy. She knew she still had a long way to go to fully make amends, but she also saw hope that she could once again become part of the Greenfield community she loved so much.